Oh,
I will quickly share my screen. Thank you for giving me this opportunity to actually be present here and to speak. Please confirm if you can see my screen and you can hear me, please.
yes, ma'am.
Yeah. Okay. Hello, everyone. Today's session is more about, I think it has to be more interactive, and it has to be something wherein I think we will have a lot of questions. If I have to put it in a very small, nutshell, when I was compiling this presentation, that is the time that even I realized that there are so many things that we can do as chartered accountants. I have, based on my experience, tried to put up many of the things. Yes, beyond this, there may be other things also to pursue, but best of my knowledge, I have kind of gathered everything at one place and have kind of tried to touch upon these things. One request to everyone: if you have questions or if you have any suggestions, ideas that you get or something that you have seen in the past, you can please feel free to share, and you can type it in the chat box, or at the end of the session we can unmute and speak to each other as convenient to everyone. And I think that would facilitate a good amount of interaction, because there is no technical content here, because this is more of a more free flow or an interactive session is how I see it, in overall basis. So one of the things that before we start on to any kind of, what are the opportunities, where do we find it, how do we find it, when we talk about professional opportunities for CAs, one of the things that comes into mind, I try to cover everything from the industry side as well as from the practice side. But one of the things that is most essential or most necessary is, beyond everything, is our soft skills, is our interpersonal skills. You all will agree and appreciate that in spite of having everything, a lot of technical knowledge, a lot of authority, a lot of superiority in knowledge and things like that, still there may be cases wherein if we are not enabled with interpersonal skill or communication skill, we may lack the confidence. That's something that's very essential. I think few of us must have gone a mile ahead and kind of tried to grab some courses, online courses or something, or develop some public speaking skills or interpersonal skills, or maybe have seen some videos, have subscribed to some videos, or have seen some apps and things like that. So there are various ways of personality development, interpersonal development that we all do on daily basis, and many of us gain from our experience also. It's not necessary to always do a course and gain, but we all learn from our experiences. So above everything, obviously, when we look at any kind of a professional opportunity, even if I start as getting into an office as soon as we qualify, and if we want to get into a job, the first thing I think that matters is how do we give an interview, and that also includes the interpersonal skill and a lot of ability to give the answers and things like that. So the professional opportunities will come your way, and you can find them more and more, but what is important is to win them. And how to win them, one of the things that is most essential is interpersonal skill, basically, and your communication skill, that would matter. What do we have today? As I said, this is more of an interactive session and it is not a one-way communique. Few of the things that I have tried to put together is the introduction. What are the sources of opportunities? What are the significant opportunities? What is the role of CA in SEBI? And what are the different courses one can do to sharpen their skills by themselves? So we as chartered accountants are actually, the opportunities are clearly very vast and the scope is quite massive, because we sit in a position that's quite unique. You can say it's a fiduciary kind of a role. So in short, if I have to put it, if we are going to a client, say if we are in professional practice, and if a client is coming to us, he looks upon us as someone who will advise him, who will also handhold him, who will ensure things are compliant. So there's a lot of responsibility, unseen responsibility also, that is put into place. Now I'm not saying that we have to take all the burden and work together. We have to be very specific on our scope, and we have to be very detailed about how we maintain the clientele as well as how we maintain the contractual relationship. So it's very necessary how we actually take up the opportunities and what is it that is our risk appetite. So for example, each one of us may be running a firm. On the practice side, if I have to talk, each one of us may be running a practice, and each one of us have different firms and we have different risk appetite. The client that I am willing to take up, you may not be willing to take up, or you are willing to take up, I may not be willing to take up, because my risk appetite is different, and also my technical ability is different. For example, if I don't have the ability to do a bank or a financial sector, I don't think so I can do a bank or a financial sector. Or say if I'm not aware of Ind AS 109, the financial instruments in detail, then I cannot take up on a company where there is heavy derivative and hedging and trading and things like that. So one of the things that is expected of us is the skill, the quality, the knowledge, and that is very essential, that we actually always maintain these things. Also, code of ethics, as such as chartered accountants, puts a lot of impetus on us to be ethical in everything that we do, and be of a behavior which actually combines ethical behavior, the integrity, and the compliance, and that is not given away in any manner. So that is a lot of responsibility to take in. The impact that a chartered accountant will have wherever he is that it's a impact on the level and quality of the organization's corporate governance as well as the governing culture, and it is actually seen as a pivotal role in assisting the board to achieve the objectives of the company, either if on the practice side or within the company, if one is working in under any positions within the company. So that's how I think it's more of heavy responsibility that is there on the shoulders. What is a career and what is the scope? Profession of accounting as such is one of the top career choices. I'm not saying others are not there, but then I think this is one of the things that, based on a survey, you can say that accounting is something that is sought very heavily. Yeah, but auditor is a rare commodity these days, because there are so many regulations that actually are regulators that are actually asking information and actually trying to regulate the auditors. So auditors have become a rare commodity. I think slowly and steadily it will become a scarce commodity going ahead on a lighter note. But yes, there is a lot of stress on the audit profession as of now. However, what goes up will always come down, and I think there will be it will be more rewarding in future is what I think. That's my personal view. One of the things that I remember during my articleship, one of the things that I have heard from my coaching class faculty was that he had said that if you are an engineer, say if you are a civil engineer, then you can work in certain type of companies. If you are a mechanical engineer, you can work in certain type of companies. If you are a doctor, you can only work in hospital. Irrespective, every company will need an accountant, and if the company is obviously larger, then it definitely needs a chartered accountant, maybe inside the company or from an external point of view as a consultant, advisor, auditor, something. So in short, chartered accountant in a way becomes omnipresent. So that's the amount of opportunities one can think about and open up the horizons and open up the thinking as to what all can be done. So every business will have journals, ledgers, bank record, profit and loss account, income, balance sheet, everything, and the tax filing and the indirect tax filing, the GST, so many compliances and things like that. So there are so many transactions that happen that becomes complicated. There are so many things that happen, like a JV entering into a JV, entering into different type of transactions. For example, now the latest thing on the block is say crypto. There is no much accounting available as of now. Under AS there is nothing, under Ind AS there is nothing, under IFRS there is something, US gas there is something, but then it is evolving. It's not fixed as of now, or if it is not something that is a literature as yet, but the things are evolving. So there is so much scope in each of these things that are happening and that are evolving over a period of time. what is the source of opportunity? Let's look at certain sources of opportunity. Sources of opportunity, I mean, from the Companies Act and the SEBI angle. Companies Act 2013 has opened up so many doors and windows as an opportunity, because there are so many things that are applicable when chartered accountant has to certify. So there are, so I have tried to classify these services into three pieces. One is the audit, that is when a person, so let me put it this way, that a chartered accountant who is actually external to the company and then who is internal to the company. Internal to the company in the sense not per se internal, but then he is employed by the company, maybe as a consultant or a management assurance person. So inside the company can also be an internal auditor, but external to the company is always an auditor or a consultant or something. So within the company also there can be a retainership basis or something who is a consultant, and then there can be an external consultant also. So there are various types of opportunities that are present. So one of the sources of opportunity, if I have to take a pause and look at, and if I have to elaborate, these 2 years, the last 2 years of world history, we have seen that pandemic has affected everyone in many ways, many bad ways. I can say businesses have been affected. There are so many things, gloomy things that has happened. But one of the things that is good that this pandemic has opened is borderless working. What's borderless working, what do I refer to, is that today if I have an office at Mumbai, it's not necessary that I have all the resources sitting from Mumbai and I will be operating from Mumbai. For example, if so this work from home culture is so widespread that many of us have been working from home from 2.5 years, and we still continue to work from home. Many of us continue to work from home. Maybe once or twice in a week we are going to office, otherwise we are working from home efficiently and actually more diligently, I would say. What has this done? Many of the companies, many of the firms have opened nodal offices, not a physical office. I can say it's nodal office is something like a or a location they call. So what is a location is that there will be one location spock who will actually collate all the will be a touch base point for all the employees in that location. So that location will not have an office maybe, and everyone from that location will be working from home, but they will be working for projects across the country. So today, if I see a small tier 2 city or a tier 3 city person may not be getting an opportunity to work upon in a company which is actually as big as, for example, Amazon or TCS or Reliance or things like that. But because of this work from home culture, there's so many opportunities, and there are permanent work from home jobs that are available now. And it's a good thing in a way that it has opened the doors. And for the companies or the firms, when we recruit or when we make these locations or nodal offices and things like that, we get so much of abundant talent that is available across the locations, which was earlier never accessible, because we would be specifically looking at the locations. Because someone, if we are recruiting in Mumbai, we will see that okay, who is staying in Mumbai, that person will be working with me. If I'm looking for office in Bangalore, then I will be looking for someone who will be staying with Bangalore office. Now it is completely location agnostic. I For example, I may recruit from anywhere. It may be Haryana, it may be Lucknow, it may be Tirupur, but irrespective, that person can work for any client anywhere. For example, it may be in Mumbai, it may be in Dehradun, it may be Delhi, it may be Jammu, anywhere. So that has actually created a lot of opportunities, a whole lot of opportunities. And it is a win-win situation for both the situations, because in metro cities people are tired of traveling. They are tired of their own the day never ends is the statement that you have, wherein they are getting the comfort to sit from their home and work. And many of them have gone towards the tier 2 cities also, if you can say. And they are happy. They are, in the sense, they are sitting at home with their family and kind of working, and they are actually ensuring efficiency also. So this is one of the biggest source of opportunity, I can say. And this is a revolution, in other words, which I can see that is happening, because there's so many CVs. When any recruitment opens up, there are so many CVs pouring in across locations because the things are not location agnostic anymore. I think that's the biggest change that I have seen ever through this 18 years. This is the first time that it has happened in this fashion. So significant opportunities under Companies Act, if I have to talk about, I think few of them I have listed down. One is statutory compliance opportunities. So there are so many compliances that the company has to do. So one can always look at statutory compliances TDS compliances, PF, gratuity, and all those compliances. So you can be on a retainer basis, GST compliances. So one can be on a sorry, one can be on a retainer basis, one can be working with them, and then they can ensure either within the company or outside the company. So when I refer to certain things, it will always be within the company and out of the company. So this can be on a retainership basis even if you're practicing, or if there can be statutory compliance officers, there can be CCOs inside the office, and they have a team of compliance people within the company. So both ways, I think there is an opportunity for a chartered accountant to work in there. One of the things, few of the services I have mentioned, which is listed down, that doesn't mean that all the services can be done together. Obviously, the restrictions as per the Code of Ethics will very much apply, because Code of Ethics restricts us from not doing certain services if we are already conducting or if we are proposing certain services. That has to be that guiding light has to be there, and we have to comply with the Code of Ethics at all points in time. That has to be kept in mind. This listing doesn't mean that everything we can provide. We have to always evaluate conflict of interest, and we should ensure that we comply with the Code of Ethics when we are actually practicing chartered accountant or even in member in industry. The next thing that I can think of is internal audit opportunities. So in internal audit opportunities, companies do have internal audit staff, internal audit department, or some of the companies have outsourced the internal audit. That means an external internal auditor is appointed to conduct the audit. Also, uh, there can be a combination of both. Company has few employees who are housed in, and then there are few areas or few locations for which internal audit is given to external people. Also, one of the important things to see here is that internal audit is not a small or a short engagement. Generally it's a long engagement, because it involves a lot of detailed process study, and as well as the complete understanding of the system. And then area by area, one actually, they divide the important areas or the key areas over a period of time. So this opportunity is quite stable opportunity, which actually, if the services and the quality obviously is ensured, it can result into 3 to 5 years, because there is no fixed rotation and other things also applicable to this kind of an opportunity. Next biggest thing is the outsourcing. Outsourcing, let's look at from 2 to 3 angles. One is outsourcing is companies outsourcing certain functions to other firms or other practicing chartered accountants or individuals or consultancy firms. What is that? That can be payroll calculation, that can be some compliances, that can be some kind of accounting, that can be some kind of testing and things like that. That is one level of outsourcing that we can look at, which we can offer as a service. Second level of outsourcing is something that is actually, say, for example, if Mr. A is running a larger firm or a medium sized firm, I would say, and he has got so many clients that he needs people to help him. So if he has a good networking, then what can happen is that he can pick up people from other firms to help him. So that is also outsourcing from the other firm to him. Third way is that, say I have a company which I am, say for example, doing an internal audit, and then it has branches all over India. I don't have offices all over India, and if I have friends all over India, obviously I can outsource that to them, and then I, with that associate chain or something, I can give a definitive reporting template, and I can actually collate, and that kind of networking can be very helpful in handling larger assignments and making our life easy. So outsourcing is the biggest thing that it is happening in India. Another thing, another angle of outsourcing is outsourcing by foreign companies to Indian companies, or foreign firms to Indian firms. So foreign companies to Indian companies, how it happens is, obviously, India is a well populated English speaking country, and we understand the systems and processes well, we can actually deliver well, and that is the opportunity, or that is a market that everyone can see, and that actually attracts a lot of other countries talents, because the labor is very costly, and then that is the advantage being in India. So there are many companies that outsource their accounting, auditing, and various kinds of work to Indian uh, counterparts, or to Indian firms, or to Indian consultancy firms. Also, there will be audits. For example, there are large firms outside India who are actually having audits of multinationals, and then they will be looking for auditors in the company, in the countries wherein their subsidiaries or the components are hosted, and they also will be looking for outsourcing of their work. That means the local audit will be done by the local auditor, and then they will be consolidating it together with them. So those are the kind of things that exist in outsourcing, and outsourcing is a very, very large piece in the practice, I can say. And that's a quite a big opportunity. If you look from any of the angles, I think I've tried to discuss 5 to 6 ways in which outsourcing works. So even how the nitty gritties are and things like that. So I think outsourcing is a very large piece which forms a very essential professional opportunity. The next thing under the Companies Act which we can see is that certification. There are so many certifications that are mandated. I have made a list of certifications which I'll display on the later screen. There's so many certifications under the Companies Act that are necessary to be done by a chartered accountant. Few of them have to be done by a statutory auditor, and few of them have to be done by others. So you have to identify the opportunity and speak to the client, and ensure that you are not soliciting. Obviously, no advertisement soliciting is permitted. So wherever the client is approaching you, you have to speak to the client and what is the requirement and things like that, and this can be a good opportunity, because there are recurring certificates also. For example, if I say, in case of an insurance broker or an insurer, then there are recurring certificates. Every month you will have to issue a certificate. So that kind of assignments you can always look into, which actually over a period of time become quite remunerative. Next, and the biggest thing I can say is the valuation. So as you know, after the Companies Act 2013 have come into force, and 3 years ago when they have brought in the registered valuer rules and things like that, one of the things that is very much present there is the valuation. All the valuation is to be done by the registered valuer. Whatever valuations like section 62, 230, 232, all this means merger, acquisition, ESOP, all these things have to be done as a valuation by the registered valuer only. So over and above your chartered accountant course, if you do the registered valuer course, I think you will become a certified registered valuer, and then you can do these things, and valuation is quite a good opportunity. Another phase of valuation is all kinds of mergers, acquisition will definitely need valuation. So share valuation, business valuation, even for going concern, you will need a valuation. So future forecasting valuation and things like that, that will be needed. Again, another piece within valuation is there will be forecasting and other things that will have to be done. So those forecasting and other things can be done by as an opportunity as well. Another angle of valuation is, if you look at Ind AS, there is so much of fair valuation that exists, and then Ind AS is a rules to the Companies Act, and then every valuation that has to be done under Ind AS has to be done by the registered valuer. So there are so many things, and we know 103 fair value, how many places fair value of matters, like financial assets, financial liabilities, if the share split is there, if there is ESOP, if there is business acquisition, if there is a merger acquisition, if there is a going concern, all these needs fair valuation, and all these have to be done by the registered valuer. So valuation in fact is a very big avenue, and there are many firms who only are practicing and who are only doing valuation also. They don't actually get into any other mode of practice as well, and they have the expertise in valuation. Next is the opportunity with respect to due diligence. As we know, what is due diligence? There can be buy side due diligence, there can be sell side due diligence, or there can be an individual investor who wants to acquire something, who wants to get done a due diligence. Now, why does this come under Companies Act? Obviously, when there are so many mergers, acquisition, cross acquisitions that have happened, obviously everyone needs a due diligence. So due diligence becomes a larger piece of the cake when which has a very quick turnaround time, but which has a good amount of fees. The next thing that we can look at is drafting of mergers and acquisitions. So there are so many drafting services that one can provide, because we all are competent to draft agreements and things like that. I think drafting mergers and acquisition is also a good service which actually works upon. Now, not only mergers acquisition, it can be drafting of ESOP scheme, partnership deeds, it can be various kinds of deeds, debenture deeds, trust deed, and all that stuff, which one can take up. And there are people who are actually, it's not only lawyers who do the drafting, but it's many chartered accountants also do the drafting, and they are doing well in this area. Next is compliance function. So within the company, you can be a compliance personnel, or you can be outside the company who will do all the compliances. This is especially necessary wherein a company is highly regulated, something like an IRDA or NBFC, insurance company which is regulated by IRDA, or an NBFC which is regulated by RBI, or a bank that is regulated by RBI, and some other kind of entities which are actually heavily subject to a lot of regulatory compliances, will definitely be looking for all kind of help that one can render. And then the compliance becomes of prime importance. Anyways, all kinds of compliances become of prime importance, but however, in these kind of heavily regulated entities, definitely the compliance becomes a heavy focus area. Also, there are so many compliances under Companies Act. So independently, there are two ways of looking at it. One, associate with the company and get all the compliances done, or at a certain period, verify only the compliances. So it can be a piece of consultancy wherein you verify all the section compliances with the Companies Act, and then you're giving an assurance to the company. And actually, statutory auditor can also use it for his own testing. So I think that is a good thing, wherein people are doing this kind of compliance monitoring, or compliance function, or compliance checklist verification, and things like that. Next is filings. Various kinds of filings that one has to do within the Companies Act, and also beyond the Companies Act, under the other laws that are applicable to the company. So one, yes, company secretaries or the CS does all the filing, but beyond that, yes, chartered accountants also do various certifications and filings, and filing is an essential activity that is carried out by, as part of the compliance also, by many of the CS. And filings is not only restricted to ROC compliances, it can go beyond ROC compliances in line with other laws, regulations that are applicable to the company, and wherein they have to ensure timely filings of the company. Few of the things, few more things is that incorporation of the company. Incorporation of the company, we all know that this is one service that we can easily provide, and this doesn't require a very big skill, or this doesn't require any kind of a different kind of a specialization. However, the documents and the matters that you declare and you reserve are to be appropriate. You may have seen one of the recent ICA announcements which said that, while incorporation, please be sure of what are the documents that you are submitting and ensure that the documents are appropriate. Do not give a declaration arbitrarily. That's something that ICA had also, mentioned as an announcement. So incorporation of company is a service that is given, and certification of those incorporation related matters. Some things related to incorporation is also MOA or drafting related certification, changes to all these documents. All these can be very well handled. Even in a regular ongoing company, there are changes to MOA that can be handled by a CA, and he can ensure compliances with respect to that. Secretarial compliances, yes, this is largely CS's job. But for many companies, secretarial compliances are also offered by CS. For example, maintaining the registers, minutes, and things like that. The minutes and the what do you say, filling up the forms and things like that. All these secretarial compliances can also be done by CA. Now, you cannot do this if you are a statutory auditor, obviously, because then you will end up having a self-review threat, wherein you are reviewing what you have actually signed. So you have to ensure that you don't get into any kind of conflict of interest while providing such services, but definitely you can provide secretarial compliances. But if in case of a larger company where it requires certification by practicing CS, yes, obviously you cannot do it. But other than that, for other companies, you can very well provide these services. In case of a larger company, corporate governance, when I talk about corporate governance in case of listed company, corporate governance is of prime importance. We'll talk about that again when we speak about in the SEBI matters. So corporate governance certification can be done by a chartered accountant who is a statutory auditor. So that's one of the options that you have, and one of the opportunities that you have, wherein you can review and evaluate the corporate governance, and you can actually certify them. Another thing within corporate governance, now this corporate governance is obviously not easy. There are so many complicated clauses within SEBI LODR, which requires the company to ensure compliance with corporate governance guidelines at all times. Now, if you are a statutory auditor, you're going to verify all those guidelines and you're going to certify that, right? Or it can be certified by a practicing company secretary. But if you are a statutory auditor, generally auditor also does it. You can also provide a service. If you're not an auditor, then you can also provide a service of governing the corporate governance, structuring the corporate governance structure. How do you do that? Because so what does corporate governance has in its belly? It's basically, corporate governance is you have to have so many number of directors, you have to have a remuneration committee, you have to have a risk management committee, you have to have a framework, you have to identify risks, you have to identify controls, you have to ensure mitigation plans, you have to have a BCP, you have to have a DRP and all that stuff. So corporate governance as per SEBI LODR is elaborate, and that needs a proper structuring of the corporate governance and ensuring compliance, or ongoing monitoring or ensuring compliance with that. So that entire service can be a package, or within that, if the company is very, very large, then only preparing the risk framework, ensuring meetings are happening on the timely basis, and ensuring compliances are done. So these can be further breakdown of the pieces that gets outsourced. So if the company secretary is taking care of the entire corporate governance, he may want someone to actually build the risk matrice for the company. So he may seek help or consultancy with respect to that. He may seek help to actually review the corporate governance over a period of time. So these are other opportunities you can actually see in a company where corporate governance is required to be ensured. IFC. When we talk about IFC, I still remember the year in which this IFC has become applicable, and there was this huge amount of service that has been floated by many companies, so many firms, I would say. IFC, two pieces to it, again, inside the company and outside the company. If you talk about outside the company, you can be an IFC auditor, that is, you can be a statutory auditor, but few of the companies also get done a separate IFC audit itself. So you can be only an IFC auditor also. It's not a statutory audit. So if in a statutory audit, if IFC is applicable, you are definitely going to do this IFC audit. But other than that, also people independently appoint firms to do the IFC audit, so that they are doubly sure. So that is possible. Internal auditor can also do the IFC audit. So that's the third piece to it. Most important is that the company, as we all know, under the IFC guidance note and under the IFC framework or the COSO framework, we all know that the company has to identify the elements of internal control. It has to draw the risk control matrices. It has to ensure that those risk control matrices are updated, and then it has to do the management testing. Now there can be different pieces of services one can offer. One can actually offer entire thing in a bundle, that I will prepare the risk control matrices for you, I will test for you, and then I will ensure compliance with you. Or separately, risk control matrix preparation itself is a task, because that takes a lot of time, understanding the process, mapping, risk control, everything, and then there can be a management has to do testing. So when management has to do testing, it can be done by a consultant on behalf of the management. So that can be another service. Now, that's a huge piece of service. Testing on behalf of the management is one of the things that, all larger companies will be looking at for various other people to do that, because they don't have that much time to do the testing, and actually they don't have that much knowledge also to actually look at or approach the testing. So that is one piece of service that is actually available in most of the larger companies. And the third thing is updating, ongoing monitoring of the IFC framework. That's the third thing which is very necessary, because every year the auditor is going to ask the question that whether it is updated, whether you have a certification that everything is mapped proper, is there anything that is missing, because management has to certify that. So that becomes a large piece of the engagement. Now, overall, if you see, if it's a listed company, IFC is applicable, and all these things are done, then you can back connect it to with corporate governance, and the risk management as such becomes a very large function and a very big opportunity that one can look at. Manpower supply. One of the things that we talked about in outsourcing is manpower supply. So what are the ways in which manpower supply? Many of the companies are looking for some resources. So they may be looking for extended hands in their internal audit. They may be looking at extended hands in the compliance function. They may be looking at extended hands in the payroll processing, maybe in the employee expense processing, reimbursement processing, or even CFO services, you can say. So everything is a manpower supply. So firms or chartered accountants in practice do get into this kind of supply. They hire resources, they look at better quality, and they hire resources, and they actually conduct interviews, they appoint them on themselves, and then they lend the manpower on extra margin basis. So this is one of the services that's very widely present, and believe me, every company almost requires some resources during the year here and there for some function or the other. So this becomes a constant work if you have good networking and if you have good connects. CFO service we talked about. So for new companies, so if I have to speak about, let me take an example. So this is one of the services that actually gets offered by a few of the firms, that is in bundle. A foreign company wants to set up its establishment in India, so they will give a place for hire, they will offer CFO services, they will give registered office service. So all this becomes a bundle of services, and for 1 year mostly this is done, because after 1 year the obligations increase, the books of accounts and all other stuff increases. So this is generally given for 1 to 2 years. And this hottest CFO services or online CFO services, this is something that's very much flourishing, and more smaller companies are using this kind of service also. And this external establishment services are also being provided by many of the firms, or the consultancy firms, or the CA firms as such. So these are, I think, more and more of opportunities that are there on the block. Every day you have to go out and venture, and then you have to ensure that you are in compliance. From the audit side, we have always seen that how to audit the financial statements. At the same time, few of the clients expect us to prepare the financial statements, but yes, you cannot prepare and you cannot sign. If the volume is quite large, obviously you cannot prepare the financial statements, but many of the times the companies may need help in preparing the financial statements. The bestest example right now is the Schedule 3. I think Schedule 3 sessions are already over. There are 25 to 27 new requirement in the Schedule 3 for actually ensuring disclosure, ensuring that the management provides this information, representation, collation of information. That's all going to take so much of time. So this becomes a very best service in this scenario, that preparation of financial statements and providing it to the management. So you're working on behalf of the management in preparing the financial statement, ensuring that there are all the compliances that are there. So here you are not writing the accounts, but then you are actually preparing the financial statements and giving it to the auditor or the management, as the case may be. Few of the things as we are looking at, because Ind AS is under Companies Act, few of the things that I can think of under Ind AS, I try to put it together. Assistance in preparation for first time adoption of Ind AS or IFRS. We all know that no one is so much enabled that they don't need a consultant with respect to preparation of financial statements or adoption of the financial statements for first time under Ind AS or the IFRS. So that's a very big service, and that actually continues for 1 or 2 years, because first time adoption and then second year you will evaluate and look at it. So basically you end up preparing 3 balance sheets, and that's a quite massive work that you will have to do, which is a bigger opportunity as well. Next thing is accounting opinions on the application of Ind AS, IGAP, IFRS, US GAAP. Now, Code of Ethics very specifically says that if you are giving a second opinion, you have to evaluate all the facts and circumstances, and then only you can give an accounting opinion. Gone are those earlier days where you could give an accounting opinion by giving a disclaimer that I don't know the facts, but I have given only on the basis of facts that are given. But right now you will have to evaluate and give. So still that opportunity exists that you can give a white paper opinion on Ind AS, IGAP or IFRS or US GAAP related matters. Another thing I can think of is that when someone prepares first time adoption of Ind AS, or even during year, there are services that can be provided, in the sense the ECL calculation. ECL calculation is so complicated that itself is a service. So for a larger company, there are so many assets that actually needs ECL. So someone provides a ECL calculation service, for example. Second is there is a complicated accounting issue. Preparing the accounting memo itself is a service. For example, whether the security or the financial asset has to be classified as FETPL or FE OCI or whatever, how the classification has to be, how is the CCPS to be accounted for, and all those, this preparing of the accounting memos and ensuring that correct accounting is happening, that itself is a service. Assistance on disclosure of adoption of new accounting framework. That's like when new accounting standards come up or the new Ind AS come up, then you can actually put it up as a additional service, saying that we will ensure comply. For example, Ind AS 116, which had come 2 years ago, that had so much of complications. There was so much of consultancy that could happen over there. So similarly, if the company is changing accounting standard, if the company is changing some accounting policy, if there is a restatement required, all these kind of things will ask for additional consultancy work to be done by obviously the expert people. Next thing is technical training. You can always offer a technical training to the accounting team of the company. It can be general, it can be specific, it can be on one standard which has come up new, or it can be a general kind of training, so that everyone understands it and does it in appropriate manner. Management memos for audit documentation. We already discussed about auditor needs certain memos, and that can be something that you can prepare for if you are not the auditor of the company. Development of training courses. We see so much of e-learnings that are happening these days. So that itself needs the standards to be understood properly. Coding is not our job maybe, but then to understand the accounting standard and then development of those training courses itself is an easy service that can be actually provided. Or if someone is into this e-learning service, then it can be employed over there. Ind AS conversion for the purposes of IPO. If I talk about IPO, it is not a one-day process, obviously. It starts 2 to 3 years ago, and then there has to be a gradual process. Various kinds of services that can be provided under IPO. We will touch upon this during SEBI session also. Is that, preparation of the financial statements or audit of the financial statements for the previous years. If someone who is not a peer-reviewed firm who has audited, then you will have to audit. If you are peer-reviewed firm, you can take up that opportunity to audit the financial statements again under the relevant GAAP. If it is on a different GAAP, for example, earlier IGAP was applicable, now Ind AS is applicable, then preparation of that financial statements or audit of that financial statements, that can be an additional service that can be provided. IPO provides a lot of avenue. We will talk about it again. Financial softwares testing, for example, there is Tally. So if you take about, I'm just giving an example, maybe QuickBooks, maybe Tally, there are CS sitting behind that. There is this taxman's IT return filing service. Behind all this, there are CS who are sitting. So there can be testing, there can be development of the content, there can be various things that one can look at as an opportunity. Under Companies Act, what all certifications are required? I said I had made a kind of detailing. Maybe this is not an exhaustive detail, but kind of try to put together whatever that came to my mind high level. INC 8 declaration in case of incorporation, DIR 3, INC 21, declaration prior to commencement of business. 22, change of office address. 28, this is with respect to notice of order or the court, if there is any order or the court by the competent authority to certify that. Then filing of resolutions and agreements to the registrar. This is the KMP and the director's form. Then ADT1 that the company has to file, which also which is not to be certified, but then just put it under various certifications that has to be done by the auditor. And also AOC4. So that's largely about Companies Act and various opportunities under Companies Act. So new challenges always bring in new opportunities, and new opportunities always bring in new challenges. How do you think we are better scaled up? I think better comparability, enhanced linkage to international trade and business. That's our USP. We always look at and keep studying more and more. Because of all this synchronization, because of all these things that are happening, obviously there is easy cross-border acquisition and JV that is possible. With more and more the entire globe becoming a small home, I think more and more opportunities are emerging for professionals and also for businesses at large. So there's a lot of opportunity that is there on the block. Reduction in reporting cost, especially in case of multiple multinational companies, because there is a single synchronization that happens, and then there is a easy synchronization between the companies that can happen, and that's why it can reduce the cost. New opportunities is in the service sector, more and more opportunities in the service sector and for the professionals. Now also in the companies, inside the companies, if we say there can be, in case of larger companies, there can be a team of accountants, there can be a team of tax advisors and things like that. So within the company also there is so much of employment opportunity that is possible for chartered accountants. And obviously with all these opportunities come new challenges. There are as such lack of expertise and awareness about international practices, so we should not end up or take up something that's quite risky, which will put us into or into the client into a different mode. Change of management representing system and internal control, so that also poses a lot of risk, because when you are doing the IFC or some other kind of audit or anything that you are doing, then obviously you will have to face a lot of these resistance because of these things. Lack of awareness among users and stakeholders at large. So we see that every day, because they interpret certain things in a different manner, but then that is not intended to be so, but then that poses as a challenge always, and that remains. Changes in every law that is possible. Change is the only constant. We have been continuously seeing that there are so many changes that are happening around us, and nothing is static. So obviously all the changing laws all time pose a lot of challenge. Now apart from all these opportunities under the companies, like the prime opportunity I have talked about in the beginning is statutory audit. So if you are doing statutory audit, some of these services you may not be able to provide. And another prime service is bookkeeping services. You can always provide a bookkeeping service to a client, but then if you're doing that, obviously you're conflicted and you cannot provide statutory audit. So all these services that we talked about has to be evaluated from conflict of interest perspective, and then only services are to be taken up. Now when we talk about SEBI, let me touch upon few of the things that actually SEBI offers. Now there can be employment inside SEBI itself. There are employment opportunities which open up in terms of the notifications or the circulars for various posts, wherein they also require chartered accountant. Now that is a government system. I'm not touching upon that. I'm just talking about how chartered accountants can get additional opportunities, or what is the role as such under the Security Exchange Board of India, or the various stock exchange, or the listed companies, in short, if I can say. I'm not talking about the employment with SEBI, because that is a government driven process completely. As such, in case of a listed company, what is a chartered accountant's position, and what is he supposed to do is that he is responsible for evaluating the validity and reliability of the company's financial statement. I'm talking in terms of auditor. I'm not talking in terms of consultant, but few of the points are overlapping between the auditor and the consultant. He is the one who assesses the risks, and also who is the one who actually helps in preventing the fraud. improves disclosure and ensures accuracy. That's another prime function of an auditor. SEBI also can order forensic audit whenever required. So if you can get empaneled with SEBI as a forensic auditor, if you have the capabilities, if you are eligible, and if you can get appointed as a forensic auditor, that is something that will provide you new opportunities to conduct more and more forensic audit. SEBI is always looking at integrity of audit reports, so there can be additional review that is possible. Again, through empanelment, you can get appointed as certain reviewers, and you can actually help SEBI in doing some kind of reports and things like that. Audit also provides investors with additional assurance and helps in making investment decisions. So audit is also an important service. One of the things that we were talking about valuation and forecasting and all, there is a huge opportunity that exists, which I have forgotten to note it down here. There's a huge opportunity which exists in terms of financial forecasting. So financial forecasting itself is a large service. Financial forecasting is used for the purposes of financial modeling, I would say. Financial modeling or financial forecasting is something that is used for the purposes of businesses, for the purposes of, say, in terms of financial statements, it can be used for going concern and other matters, but there are a lot of financial modeling that goes on, because that forms the basis of various calculations, estimates, and matters like that. So financial modeling in itself is a different wing, and one can actually, many people pursue their career in financial modeling. Again, valuation under SEBI, very much there because of any kinds of acquisition, any kinds of merger, any kind of share split, ESOP, anything, then valuation is a must. So valuation is something that is sitting there. Corporate governance structure, we have spoken about corporate governance structure for all the listed entities. SEBI LODR is applicable, and wherever SEBI LODR is applicable, obviously there will always be a corporate governance structuring that will be applicable. Independent directorship, a chartered accountant who is in practice can also become an independent director, non-executive independent director. That is very much possible. So that is something as a opportunity that you can look at. Consultancy or advisory on all SEBI matters. So if I have to put it this way, that there are various reports, forms, etc., that has to be submitted by the just a second. Yeah, sorry. So there are a lot of compliances that have to be done under SEBI also. So there can be a consultancy or advisory with respect to SEBI matters. Also, companies go into various kinds of, if there are defaults, mistakes, then there are compounding and other things that happen with SEBI and SEBI appellate also. So there can be a detailed service, or there can be certain things that is possible to be given by the chartered accountant with respect to consultancy or the advisory. IPO, as I spoke about, it is not a single day process. It starts with various stages. So now let's take an example. There is a company ABC Limited, ABC Private Limited, which wants to go into listing. So first conversion of the company to private, from the private limited company to public limited company, step 1, that's a service. Step 2, it may be on AS. So now it has to be on Ind AS. Conversion can be a next service. So it is audited by a non-peer reviewed firm, getting it audited under the new GAAP under the Ind AS, that is Ind AS, that itself is another service, and you have to be peer reviewed. The next is you become the statutory auditor of the company, then you actually sign the entire financial statements of that company, restated financial statements also, examination report also, comfort letters also. That's the next thing. If and certain certificates that are required. If you are not a statutory auditor, there is a list of around 25-30 certificates that are required for the purposes of IPO. Not everything is signed by stat auditors, because many of them the stat auditors won't take up because of the paucity of time and various other reasons. That can be actually done by other practicing chartered accountants. Then in the due course, the company has to get prepared, geared up for IFC. So there is an opportunity with respect to IFC, risk management, RMCs, RCMs, testing, and all that stuff. Company has to get geared to corporate governance. Structuring of corporate governance is another service. Then company gets listed, ensuring compliances is another service. So it has the ocean amount of services, and there are so many things that is possible when a company goes into IPO. So it's a huge opportunity, and never one person will be able to meet everything. One, due to conflict of interest. Second, due to the time and the availability of people. So this is a huge thing that actually can one can look at. Auditor reviews, yes, as it is SEBI listed, it will need regular audits, it will need regular limited reviews, quarterly limited reviews. So that is a standard opportunity that exists with all the listed companies per se. Certifications, various certifications SEBI also asks for from the statutory auditors. So that is another opportunity that one can always look for. Preparation of financial statements, because it's a listed company, because there's an ocean of disclosures that are required. So preparation of financial statements itself can be a service, and providing any kind of outsourcing work, providing any kind of manpower, all these things goes without saying. If the company is larger, there are more and more opportunities that one can look for. Preparation of annual report. So if it is a listed company, it has to publish annual report. So there can be two phases. One is preparation of the annual report itself. There will be a full-time secretary, but many a times they seek help in putting up the annual report together, ensuring compliance that end to end it is appropriate. And also, sometimes verifying, proofreading the annual report can also be a service that can be looked at, because from an independent third party perspective, please go through if things are appropriate, everything is there, things are matching. So proofreading the annual report itself can be a service. Sustainability services, now that's the next biggest thing there. Both sustainability services, we all are aware of so many sustainability measures that every company is taking, or every large company is taking, and we as environment soldiers or eco-friendly matters and things like that, there are so many things that are going into sustainability per se in providing any kind of services. So companies are more and more looking towards sustainability services, and then there is something called as integrated reporting. Few of the companies have already started working towards the integrated reporting, and then I think slowly and steadily this will become norm of the time, that integrated reporting will become applicable to almost everyone. So sustainability reporting and integrated reporting, there are courses offered by various institutes, and our institute also offers these courses. One can do these courses, and this is the next big thing that is going to come, and this will be like a I would say empowering, over covering mass to everyone, and sustainability services is here going to stay. Sustainability reporting, that is about carbon footprints and enabling the society, community, and all that, and that's something that's going to stay. Related to this, if I remember, not related to this directly, even under Companies Act, one can also provide CSR related services. What is CSR related services? Ensuring compliances under CSR. That itself becomes a service, because that's a large section with so many notifications, so many circulars, so many rules. It becomes complicated to ensure compliance. So that itself is a service that is offered by few of the practicing people who actually have expertise in that, and actually ensure that appropriate compliances are there. Litigations in terms of any kind of discussions that are required with SEBI, in case SEBI has imposed some fine, penalty, then getting into the litigation, arguing with the SEBI and all those stuff, that also can be provided as a service. So important regulations, just as a quick glance, substantial acquisition of shares takeover regulation, that requires a lot of valuation and also a certification. Under certification under SEBI, there are lots of certifications that are required. One is buyback certification is required during IPO. It is required during QIP. There are lots of certification that was required. Comfort letters are required. And another angle of IPO is there are a lot of chartered accountants who can be part of merchant banking solutions, or merchant bankers, or even as equity research people. So there's a flood of people on the equity research and on the market this thing. Another thing is that in IPO, there are firms who provide full-time IPO support services. That means they will ensure that everyone does their job properly. For example, if I take up that service, what I will do is that okay, old auditor has to give me the report, new auditor has to give me the report, examination report has to come in this time, comfort letter has to come in that time, management has to give me this, CSR auditor has to, CSR person has to give me this, risk IFC people have to give me this. So I will do all the coordination, ensure that IPO is smoothly flowing from end to end, and make a timeline and manage. So it is kind of a project management work. That is also a service that is provided, and that also requires a lot of people and resources and time. That's another big thing that's possible. Then SEBI LODR regulation, as we spoke about. Just I try to list it down a few of the courses that you can do after CA to polish your skills or to enhance your skills, I can say, so that you will be able to offer different services. DISA or CISA, we all know that's necessary, and information system audit is also one of the major things that one is looking into. Another piece when I'm talking about DISA and CISA is ITGC. So what is ITGC? IT General Control Testing. So every large company, whoever has a complicated IT system, will have to get done the ITGC as part of the audit. So many of the audit firms are looking for support over here, that someone will provide me ITGC service. So for that client, you will do the ITGC and then I will start doing the audit. So that's possible. So that is another service that largely one can look at. CIA, Certified Internal Auditor. You can, if you are pursuing internal audit as your career, CFA mostly helps you in financial modeling and financial forecast and related activities. CPA, so if I talk about CPA, even if you are in India and you have done the CPA, and if your membership is active, there are few states in US which allow you to sign the general purpose financial statements over there, and CPAs are always in demand. There are some subsidiaries of US companies which are sitting here who also require them to get consolidated into the parent, and for that also CPA certification becomes necessary. ACCA, to polish your skills on IFRS, you can actually do an ACCA, and you can ensure that you have the certification, so that adds value to your skills. Investment banking, if you're on the equity research side, or if you want to go on the merchant banking side, investment banking will always help. CMA, cost management accounts, this will help if you're looking at the company cost management, and then if you're looking into the factory accounts and management assurance and management reporting and things like that. If you're looking into that kind of services, then CMA can definitely help you. And LLB, why I have what's the purpose of putting it here is that this will enable us to understand the laws and regulations better, and it makes our life better. Simple if we are into the core practice itself. Just to touch upon few of the types of job offered, part-time job that is available, you can Google and you can get. There are lots of part-time jobs that are available. Even if you network well, you will get some of the part-time jobs or the freelance jobs that will be available. Also, full-time jobs are available, as we know, whether in CA firm or whether in companies or wherever. As we discussed about the COVID, and it has opened a huge amount of opportunities to everyone across this thing. Freelance assignments is something that has grown by leaps and bounds. I can say part-time and freelance is something that has grown leaps and bounds, and also accessibility to everyone for everywhere. So someone sitting in a remote town may not have imagined that he's going to do an audit of a large insurance company or a large bank, and someone who is sitting in a large town may not be expecting that some talent is sitting somewhere inside, which can be best utilized, or the person can put his best foot forward. So that kind of a connect has happened because of this work from home thing. So just to touch upon one or two more things, ICI also has got a women portal. ICI has got a job portal. You can register yourself as employer, employee. You can actually search jobs there, or you can get spotted there also. So that's also possible. So I think that's largely what I have as such to share, and I can open the floor for any kind of questions for the last 10-15 minutes. Questions if anyone has, or anyone wants to share any thoughts, suggestions, ideas, whatever I knew of, I've tried to put across everything together. But yes, definitely there can be more. So please feel free to share your thoughts or ask questions.